I didn't really have like dreams of a job. Like I was like, I don't want to do any of that, honestly.
Yeah.
If people can like win Pulitzers for like writing about clothes, like that's lit. Like let's run that. I can be a fashion writer.
Welcome to Meetings That Changed My Life, where I sit down with creative duos to hear how their initial meeting led to a whole new realm of creativity. On the agenda for today's meeting, we've got a creative duo that is changing the game when it comes to culturally connected visual expression. I'm sitting down with prolific photographer and director Micaiah Carter, alongside longtime collaborator, stylist, and creative director Corey Stokes. These two are responsible for making a lot of magic together, and we've got so much to talk about. I'm your host, Bimma, and this meeting is now in session. Micaiah and Corey, thank you so much for joining us on Meetings That Changed My Life. How are y'all?
Great, thank
Doing
you for
well.
having us.
Doing well.
Micaiah, tell me about the inspiration behind your career.
There's this show called The City that I was obsessed with when I was a kid, and Kelly Cuthrone, she had this photographer come in and they were having a meeting, and I was like, wow, I didn't know photographers could do these types of things. Because when I was in my hometown, Victorville, I was working at the Daily Press, which is a local newspaper. So I didn't know fashion photography or those type of things were like a thing that I could do. So that was a part of the inspiration also. My dad, he wasn't a photographer, but he cherished documenting his life, and he was into technology, so he always had a camera on him. And his albums, he used to scrapbook back in the 70s, so I have all these like decades of blackness essentially of my family, which inspired me.
Corey, how about you? Can you give us like maybe just like a quick snapshot of like start career to like where you are today?
I didn't really have like dreams of a job. Like I was like, I don't want to do any of that, honestly. And so it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. It started, and then once I would say pressured, right? You get to having to go to college, and you're like, well, what are you gonna do? I realized I love writing, I love reading. I got into journalism, and I focused on that. I also realized I love clothes and I love fashion, so I was like, I can be a fashion writer. I started to obsess over like Robin Givhan, who is a writer for the Washington Post. She's the first ever Black woman to win a Pulitzer for fashion writing.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, if she could, like, if people can like win Pulitzers for like writing about clothes, like that's lit. Like let's run that. And so that's how it started. I started interning at publications, and it just shifted over into caring about like the image, the images that went along with the text. And
What was it about the images that was so powerful to you?
I remember feeling things from images that you typically only get when you like read a story and you know, and I was like, oh, this is another form of storytelling that's way more collaborative than kind of like writing alone. You know what I mean? I made the transition to being a stylist after writing for a few years.
Did you feel like that was a natural transition for you, or did it feel like, oh yeah, I'm in my bag?
Yeah, like I was thankful that I was an intern at Complex, and that's when I was writing, and then I was in the fashion closet, and so you just happened to be like, oh, you're gonna write, but you're also gonna like check in all these clothes, and you're gonna assist us on set. And so I was able to get both experiences, and then it just made the transition a bit easier once I decided I want to put this pen down and pick up this safety pin.
Micaiah, in the foreword of your book, What's My Name, your friend Tracy Ellis Ross says, your superpower is capturing the safety and connection, the beauty of being. How did you develop your style over time?
I think I developed my style by just being consistent. Also, I had this meeting actually when I first went to New York, this guy named Cameron Davis. I will never forget it. I met him at the Barnes & Nobles, and he sat me down. He was like, let's look at all these fashion magazines. What do you notice about all these photographers that you can notice their work without seeing a big watermark over it? And he was like, that's the signature. It's the coloring, it's the technique. And before I even knew conceptually about like me being a Black photographer, me photographing in that space of what that meant to the world, I just loved photography, and I was a nerd about just images and how people retouched, and how, like what Corey said earlier, images, can tell 1,000 words, and I felt that every time I looked through magazines. Even as a kid, My mom used to get Oprah magazine and Elle magazine. I used to like sit and like go through them because it was a world that didn't feel real. Also to me being a black kid from Victorville, it was like, oh, this is otherworldly. Yeah, it's otherworldly. So to me, it really inspired me. But I think I stayed true to myself. I think that's my signature. I really try to be spontaneous with my work and find those moments where the person I'm photographing doesn't feel like a subject, it's like a conversation that's happening.
Tell me about how the two of you met. Corey, what do you remember about first meeting Micaiah?
I met his work before I met him, actually. A mutual friend of ours, he was a coworker and was a mentor now really close friend, Matthew Henson, worked with Micaiah on a project. And I can't remember what the project
it was. The GQ program.
No, it was before that. No, it was like, I can't remember, but it was a project. And I was like, who's this photographer you worked with? Like, and I can't remember how Matthew said he found you or you guys found each other. And I was like, I want to shoot with him. Like, I really want to shoot with him. And I just started at High Snobiety. And I was like, just blindly, did I DM you?
Yeah, I think you DM'd me.
Because I don't think you had an agent or representation. Did you?
I did, but it wasn't like...
I didn't go the appropriate way.
Corey's like, I'm not going that route.
No, but that's how New York was back in the day. Like, it was
dope.
Real community building.
Yeah.
That's what it really felt
The whole
like.
shoot was that. Like, we shot at my friend Elise's Greenpoint apartment. And it was like, those still some of my favorite images. Yeah. To this day. That was our first shoot. And it was kind of just like, I think I have this concept. I really love you to shoot it. And he was like, he was surprisingly like down for it all. And I was like, oh, okay.
Micaiah, what was going through your head when you received this message from Corey? Take us into this meeting.
I mean, I was just excited to shoot something for High Snobiety also. So it was like a mix of both feelings. But also when I found out Corey was a Cancer, I was like, oh, I got to tap into this too because we think the same way. And it's so easy to collaborate with him. And that's something that I treasure deeply. So I was a little nervous because it was like, a shoot. I'm always it's good nerves though. Right. Then my homie Raheem was assisting me, who now is a really great photographer. The way it all happened back then was so, honestly didn't really know what I was doing, but I was just keep on being consistent and I was just trying stuff. I'm glad that Corey allowed me the space to feel like I could try things and not have to be rigid in a way.
I don't think either of us knew what we were doing, honestly. I was like, I want some beautiful images. Yeah. He looks like he can do it. I have some clothes. I have this beautiful space. Like, I got a little bit of budget. Like, let's just have fun. We made magic. It was really beautiful.
There's something about like, there's no rules. There's no preconceived, I should do this or I can't do this or what happens if I do this. Did either of you encounter anything interesting as far as working styles on the set during that time that still maybe sticks out today or has evolved since?
I mean, I think we both evolved from like just being pushed out into the industry, doing different jobs, getting feedback, learning what works and what doesn't work for those types of things. And it shows, like, even from, like, it continues to show. Our last shoot that we did was for was Tracy, Erica, and Issa for Essence. Yeah. And we did that in, how many hours was that? Like 2 hours we had to do that. But like that shows the growth of not knowing what you're doing, but then learning it on the way. And honestly, not feeling ashamed about messing up too, because it's all part of the process.
Yeah, I will say the one thing that is always nice about working with Micaiah and consistent from that very first High Snob shoot to even this. He likes to plan, but he's not like set on it. He leaves room to pivot if we need to, which is always nice because it's like, okay, cool, you want to actually scrap that and do this? Bet, let's go. Micaiah is always willing to kind of like roll with what we have. And Micaiah does a great job at, you give him the skeleton and he does it all else. And I'm the type of creative, I'm just like, I don't want to touch like guidelines in the way. I'm just like, do your thing. And I let him and the stylist Solange Franklin and we had Stephen Galloway doing movement. It was just
it was a perfect team.
It was a perfect team, really. If I wasn't a creative director and stylist, I would be an A&R. I just love music. As I started to grow up and realize you need a job to make money and survive, I always thought it would be interesting to have a career that like helped build a project. Legacy to me means it really plays a part in how we look to the future. Legacy is a bit of a blueprint.
Corey, I wanted to ask you something about, you talked about being a constant student and always learning. How do you maintain that mindset that we are students and we are here to learn?
As a creative director, you are expected to kind of direct and lead in a way, but I think it's always important to just give the bare minimum to the team and let them teach me in terms of like what my words or what this brief looks like to them, and trust them, right? Because I may have a idea of what I see it looking like, but I've also brought on Micaiah and the rest of the team to execute it through their lens. A part of it is like giving them the brief and then kind of like sitting on my hands and having them come back to what their interpretation of it is. That's a big piece of it, is like, you know, not being so hell-bent or, you know, rooted in like
sitting over
what
their
my
shoulders.
vision. Yeah, just letting them do their thing. I tend to like walk away from set sometimes. Just be like, I'm gonna let y'all do it. I'll come back.
Hey, Micaiah, how about you? Like, how does that impact you when it comes to being a student, when it comes to the work?
I mean, I feel like with photography especially, you're always a student because things are constantly changing, whether it's the technology you're using or the lighting that you're using, how it advances. So I always am a student, and I think I honestly look towards my team a lot to learning new things. I am young, I guess, still. So my team is a little bit older than me, so I love going to set and learning from them. It feels like I'm in school still, learning about this new camera that came out, learning this new technique, trying different lighting techniques that I haven't tried before with different lights, you know what I mean? Like, I think there's always something to learn. My favorite project that me and Corey did was Summer Walker for Essence. It was special because the way we collaborate, he lets me kind of voice my opinion of what I want to do and kind of matches up really well. So it was kind of interesting to see Summer in a new light for that story. My favorite photographer of all time is John H. White, a Chicago documentary photographer, and his work showcased Black America, but also the side of Black America that isn't always polished, which I also thought was beautiful.
What does the future look like for collaboration for you two?
Well, there's a personal project that you asked me about, and I know it's still on his radar.
I want to shoot something in Victorville so badly because I think Victorville, or the high desert in general, just a weird place. It's its own, their own creatures that are there. So I really want to do a project because I think the people there are beautiful.
I'm sure there's a list of artists too that we've talked about wanting to work with or talent that we want to shoot.
Who's someone that's at the top of your list of talent that you're like, it'd be great to work with them?
You know what I want to say? He already knows what I want to say.
Tell me.
Queen Bee.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's definitely something we have to do together. You know who would actually be really beautiful? This is on my list, and I think Micaiah would be a really cool person to shoot. Sade.
Oh, definitely.
I'm not necessarily someone who's like, I have this idea that I'm dying to get out, right? Like things come to my mind or opportunities come, and I'm like, this will be great to work with Micaiah on. But Micaiah has such a vision that he's just like, I have this idea. And I'm like, okay, tell me more. You know what I mean? And I really lean on him and his vision to kind of like bring me into a lot of the projects.
I think Burberry was actually a good example of that because
100%.
I was doing whatever I wanted to do that day. But I trusted Corey, and Corey was because we had a limited, like, it was, what were we shooting?
I can't even remember, but we had like a limited amount of product.
It was
and
coats and stuff, but he like turned jackets into skirts and did a bunch of stuff. It was really amazing. And just the spontaneity of that shoot. I remember Nigella was doing hair and she was cornrowing the hair and she left half of the hair out and I was like, oh, that's beautiful, let's stop. And then Corey made a scarf out of one of the jackets or something like that. It was really wild. But I love creating like that because it's like,
that was a fun day.
Like what is real and what's not, like what is something that's used in fashion or what can it be turned into? But Corey allows me to do that, which I love.
Yeah. Only a plan until it's not. Like, it does not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't be beholden to it. You can't be too rooted in it.
And it's more fun that way too. Like you get
100%.
the most authentic stuff when you're not thinking about it or trying to contrive a feeling that you're referencing. And references are always good, but that's why I love the Summer Walker covers so much, because it references nothing really. And I think that creates new types of things, inspired by everything under the sun.
Of course.
But it's like a breath of fresh air to see something that isn't trendy.
How do you think the industry is changing?
The industry is leaning into, I think, more like niche storytelling. I think that's really gaining a lot of traction. I think general population storytelling, media platforms and the likes are not as interesting anymore. I think people are starting to really build confidence in their own identity. And they want to be able to find a place that they see themselves in. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, but I think that's where we're going to continue to go, making sure that everyone feels seen versus trying to tell like a general story for everyone to be a part of.
Broadcast the story. It's like, no, we're actually going even more niche, deeper into niches maybe.
Yeah, I see that too. I think a lot of photography and a lot of even moving images are a lot about subcultures, even within Black communities. I think it's super important to diversify the regional things too. Like it's so different, the Black experience in New Orleans versus someone in California versus someone in DC. And it's little nuances, but those things I think are being more tapped into, people really accepting their individuality and themselves fully. And you see that through all types of media, not just photography, even with music. There's so many different subgenres of hip hop now. It's like there's a lane for everybody.
What we're seeing is like the bigger machines are having trouble trying to categorize these things. And what categories? Like there's no category.
And there's no check mark that can really. Like, it's. I think that's the biggest thing that I noticed now, that check mark has been reduced a little bit. But I think also I'm seeing people of color going into those spaces now and creating their own voice and their own tribe.
And even being reminded of spaces that we've come from. Like this, this whole country music narrative and, folks are like, there was a narrative out there that was like, oh, that's not Black music. And it's like, why can't it be?
Who?
It says who, right? Micaiah, Corey, thank y'all so much for joining us on Meetings That Changed My Life. This has been such an inspiring conversation between the two of you. I'm excited to see, what's coming up next. I mean, the Sade project.
If you're watching, I don't know what camera I'm looking at, but Sade, we want to make some magic.
I love it. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.